Well, folks, let's dive into something that's shaking up the global economic scene. You've heard about China, right? That big player on the world stage? Well, they're making some bold moves in the trade arena that could change the game for many, including us here in the USA. Now, here's the scoop. For the first time ever, developing countries and emerging markets are now playing a bigger part in China's trade strategy than traditional heavyweights like the US and Europe. They account for a whopping 56.7% of China's total trade volume. That's right, more than half. This isn't just a shift, it's a whole new playbook. Why the change? China's been pretty busy signing up partners in what they call the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP for short. This deal has tightened China's trade ties with countries across the Asia-Pacific. Just last year, trade between China and the 14 other countries in this group hit $1.77 trillion. That's up 5.3% since this whole thing kicked off in 2021. But that's not all. China's been stitching up free trade agreements left and right with nations that are part of its Belt and Road Initiative, 154 countries to be exact. And guess what? These places now soak up nearly 40% of China's exports, tallying up to about $1.3 trillion. And here's another kicker. China's not just trading more, they're exporting their wheels like never before. They've climbed up to be the world's top car exporter. Last year alone, they shipped off 840,000 vehicles to Russia, stepping in where European and Japanese manufacturers backed out because of all the geopolitical heat. What does this mean for us? Well, as China cozies up with these emerging markets, they're not just influencing global trade, they're reshaping it. These markets have doubled their slice of the world trade pie since China joined the World Trade Organization back in 2001. And as they grow, they're not just getting stronger economically, they're becoming central nodes in global value chains, which could mean a lot of economic muscle flexing in the future. And here's something you might find quite interesting. China's strategy isn't just about trading more, it's about trading smarter with a broader set of partners. Let's talk about the BRICS countries: Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. China's dealings with these power players have surged, folks. Just in the first quarter of 2024, trade with these nations reached a staggering 1.49 trillion yuan, or about $9.7 billion. That's an 11.3% jump compared to last year, and it represented a solid 14.7% of China's total foreign trade. Now, hold on to your hats, because when we look at the first 7 months of 2023, the numbers are even more eye-popping. Trade between China and the BRICS soared by 19.1% year-on-year to a whopping 2.38 trillion yuan. That's roughly 26 billion. Exports alone jumped by 23.9%, and imports weren't far behind, with a growth of 14.3%. But here's the kicker, folks. China's widening its circle. They've brought in new players to the BRICS team: Iran, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Ethiopia. This isn't just an expansion, it's a major strategic shift. This move enhances the economic footprint of the BRICS bloc and, of course, boosts China's influence even further on the global stage. Focusing on some specifics, China's relationship with Iran largely revolves around energy. Despite the international sanctions on Iran, China remains a crucial market for Iranian crude oil, which is vital for keeping China's lights on. The UAE is another key partner, with ties spanning across sectors like energy, technology, and infrastructure. The UAE isn't just buying, they're supplying petroleum and petrochemical products vital for China's industries. Now, I've got to ask for a quick favor. If you're finding this discussion enlightening, smash that like button. Your likes and comments not only mean the world to us, they also help more people get informed. And if you haven't already, consider watching the whole video to support our channel. We really value your engagement, and it helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into what's happening around the world. Thank you for being part of our community. Back to the global stage. How do these growing ties between China and the BRICS countries affect us here in the US? Are we ready to navigate these shifting sands in global trade? What moves should we be making to ensure our economic interests are secured? These are questions we need to be asking, folks, as the world economy doesn't just spin, it evolves with every deal, every partnership. Let's turn our attention to some of the powerhouse players in China's strategic trade network, starting with Saudi Arabia. As one of the world's largest oil producers, Saudi Arabia has become an indispensable energy partner for China. Much of their bilateral trade is anchored in the crude oil that flows from Saudi to China, making up a significant chunk of China's energy imports. With Saudi Arabia stepping into the BRICS circle, we're not just looking at continued trade, we're looking at potentially game-changing economic cooperation under a more structured framework. Now, over to Egypt. Folks, Egypt is more than just pyramids in the Nile. For China, it's a strategic gateway, not just to Africa, but to the entire Middle East. Their relationship is robust, spanning hefty Chinese investments in Egyptian infrastructure projects and a healthy flow of Chinese machinery and electronics into Egypt. Moving south to Ethiopia, this partnership paints a picture of mutual benefit. China's footprint here includes massive infrastructure projects like railways and industrial parks. Meanwhile, Ethiopia sends agricultural goodies back to China and receives a wide array of Chinese goods, from machinery to textiles. This kind of exchange underlines the strategic diversity and depth that the expanded BRICS bloc brings to the table, a collective market with a hefty GDP that's making waves on the global economic front. Let's zoom in on the numbers for a moment. China's electromechanical exports to BRICS, they've skyrocketed by 38% year-on-year, reaching 79.4 billion yuan. And within that, exports of lithium batteries and electric passenger vehicles shot up by 129.5% and 61.3% respectively. It's not just the state giants driving this. China's private companies are leaping into BRICS markets, with their trade volume ballooning to 1.36 trillion yuan in just the first 7 months of 2023. That's up by a stunning 29.4%. Now, let's not overlook our friends in the EU. The trade dynamics here are shifting. In 2023, imports from China to the EU took a dip by 17.8%, yet China remains the EU's largest goods supplier, cornering 20.5% of all extra EU imports. Even as some numbers falter, like the slight decrease in the EU's exports to China, the trade volume remains significant. We're talking about a critical partnership here, especially in sectors like machinery, vehicles, and key technologies. Folks, the big picture is clear. China is reshaping its global economic strategy, not just through increased trade, but through strategic partnerships with emerging powers in the BRICS and beyond. The implications for us here in the US? It's a wake-up call. We need to stay agile and proactive, ensuring our trade strategies are robust enough to handle these shifts. What's our next move on the chessboard of global trade? That's the million-dollar question. Let's break down some critical dependencies here that could have big implications for the EU's future, particularly in the realm of green technologies. The EU's heavy reliance on China for heavy rare earth elements, REEs, is particularly noteworthy. These elements are indispensable in manufacturing high-tech products like permanent magnets, crucial for wind turbines and electric vehicles. Now think about this. China supplies between 98% to 100% of the EU's needs for these heavy REEs. That's a staggering figure, folks, especially considering the EU's ambitious goals to transition to a green economy and cut down carbon emissions. But the dependency doesn't end there. When we talk about critical minerals such as bismuth, germanium, hafnium, magnesium, and tantalum, elements vital for semiconductors, aerospace, and defense technologies, the story is much the same. China is not just a major player, it's the heavyweight champ, providing 86% of the world's rare earth supply and dominating production of these other critical minerals. This puts the EU's industrial value chains and strategic sectors at a significant risk. If the supply chain gets disrupted, or if political tensions escalate, it could spell trouble. Now, let's talk solar. China's grip on the global solar panel supply chain is another eye-opener. Controlling between 80 to 90% of the production process, particularly in the manufacturing of solar cells and modules, China has become the backbone of the solar panel industry. This dominance is due to its vast production capabilities and hefty investments in solar technology, allowing it to churn out solar panels at costs other countries can hardly match. So, what's the takeaway for our folks here and abroad? The EU's reliance on China for these critical components highlights a glaring need for diversification and boosting domestic production capacities. It's not just about trade deficits or economic statistics. It's about securing the future of critical industries and ensuring resilience in face of geopolitical shifts. For us in the US, this serves as a crucial lesson too. Diversification isn't just wise, it's necessary. How we respond to similar challenges, how we innovate and adapt, will define our standing in the next generation of global economics. Now, folks, let's talk about a big piece of the puzzle in the high-stakes world of global trade and technology: our reliance on China, especially in sectors crucial for the future, like electric vehicle batteries and solar cells. Starting with the electric vehicle (EV) battery supply chain, the U.S. finds itself heavily dependent on China for more than 80% of critical stages, including mining, processing, and refining essential minerals like lithium, cobalt, and graphite. Why does this matter? Well, these minerals are the building blocks for EV batteries, which are central to our clean energy ambitions. China isn't just playing the game here. They're setting the rules, producing 3/4 of all lithium-ion batteries worldwide and holding massive shares in the production of key components like cathodes and anodes. Moreover, China commands over half of the global capacity for processing and refining these pivotal minerals. While we're making moves to strengthen our domestic supply chains through legislation, China's influence remains formidable. They're strategically circumventing U.S. restrictions and boosting their global footprint through hefty investments in places like Illinois and Morocco, with companies like Ganfeng High-Tech and CATL. These moves not only secure their supply chain, but also enhance their leverage over the global market. Turning our gaze to the solar sector, the situation mirrors our EV battery dilemma. China dominates over 80% of the global supply chain for critical solar components, including polysilicon, wafers, and cells. This dominance is not just an economic issue, it's a national security concern, especially given the backdrop of geopolitical tensions and trade disputes. In the first half of 2023 alone, China exported a staggering 114 gigawatts of solar panels worldwide, marking a 34% increase from the previous year. This underscores China's entrenched position in the global market, where they account for 80% of the manufacturing capacity for solar panels. A significant chunk of these exports are finding their way not just to Europe, but also to our shores here in the United States. So, what's the bottom line? As geopolitical tensions simmer and the stakes in global trade and technology continue to rise, our dependence on China for essential components in sectors critical to our future, like clean energy, puts us in a precarious position. We must ensure that our economic security and technological sovereignty are not compromised. The question for all of us is, how do we balance these challenges with the opportunities presented by global trade? How do we ensure that we remain competitive while securing our critical supply chains against potential disruptions? It's a complex puzzle, folks, but one we must solve as we navigate this dynamic global landscape. Wrapping up today's deep dive, let's touch upon another critical sector where the U.S. finds itself significantly tied to China: semiconductors. This isn't just about any tech, folks, but the very backbone of everything from your smartphone to the nation's defense systems. China's role in the semiconductor supply chain, particularly concerning materials like gallium, is nothing short of dominant. Gallium is crucial for advanced semiconductors, which are integral to defense applications, telecommunications, and electric vehicles. In 2022, China controlled a whopping 98% of the global supply of unprocessed gallium. That's a near monopoly, and it highlights the strategic depth of China's influence in this sector. China's focus isn't just on the cutting-edge chips. They've significantly ramped up their production of legacy semiconductors. These are the older models, but don't be fooled, they're still absolutely vital across a range of industries. By 2027, China is expected to produce 39% of the world's supply of these chips, up from 31% in 2023. Folks, as we wrap up today's session, remember that our discussions here aren't just academic. They're about understanding the real-world implications of our global dependencies and how they impact everything from national security to your everyday consumer goods. If you found today's content insightful, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Don't forget to check out our other videos, now displayed on your screen, for more in-depth discussions. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay informed and stay secure.